There we go. Okay, so thank you so much everyone for joining us today. So this is an event hosted by the Gifts and Wills team at Blind Veterans UK. Gifts and Wills help support 5 in 10 of our blind veterans. They're incredibly important to our charity. We rely on them to provide lifelong support that we commit to our beneficiaries, to our veterans like Rob, who is pictured here with his daughter. So during this event, you will hear more about the work of Blind Veterans UK and how Gifts and Wills help our veterans. So today we have joining us President of Blind Veterans UK, Colin Williamson, Director of Operations, Nikki Shaw, and Paul Hartley, Rehabilitation and Practice Development Lead. They'll be speaking to you today about the work of blind veterans, and if you have any questions, there will be the opportunity to ask those at the end. So I will pass over to Colin now. Colin's going to be speaking without slides, so I will stop sharing my screen and I will pass over to Colin Williamson.
Great, thanks very much, Kim. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope the weather where you are is as nice as it is up here in sunny Northumberland. As Kim said, my name is Colin Williamson, and I have the privilege of being the president of Blind Veterans UK. I joined the charity back in 2003, and in 2007 I was fortunate enough to be asked to work for the charity, and I've been doing that for the past 16 years. My sort of military background, I joined the army straight from school at the age of 15. I did 2 years training as a junior soldier and then joined my regiment over in Germany at the age of 17 and a half. I left the army after 6 years, and I started to work for British Telecom. Well, they were called GPO Telecoms at the time, and I had a good career at Telecom. And unfortunately, I was a victim of an unprovoked street attack, which left me blind in the right eye and with no central vision in the left eye. And after a series of operations on the left eye, I was registered blind. I couldn't do anything more for us. And subsequently, I applied to join St Dunstan's, as it was then, and was accepted. And it was a life-changing moment, not only for me, but for my entire family. As you could imagine, I was employed. I had a young family, had 2 daughters. I drove, I had a car, and my passion was motorbiking. And I used to enjoy driving and going on holiday and hiking and climbing and things like that. But I thought all that had been ripped away when I'd lost my sight. But like I say, I was very fortunate. Blind Veterans came along, and they provided me with the tools and the skills, but more importantly, the belief that I could go on to live a full and independent life. And I have done. Like I said before, blindness just doesn't affect the individual, it affects their entire family. And I was very fortunate that Blind Veterans UK stepped in and offered me a job, and that's why I'm so grateful for the charity, and that's why I'm so willing to leave a gift in my will, so that any future ex-servicemen or women that come into the charity that need help and support can benefit from my gift. As you well know, there are many obstacles and barriers which blind veterans have to overcome to lead a full and independent and useful life. But the help and support that we receive from the charity can come at a huge financial cost. So any gift that people leave in their wills is absolutely tremendous. And that's why your gift is so important. Now, I fully understand that there may be supporters out there who maybe a small amount that can leave a large amount in their will to help blind veterans, but I also realise that there's probably a large cohort of supporters out there that can only leave a small amount. Whatever amount you leave in your will be put to really good use, and it'll benefit literally thousands of future blind ex-servicemen and women, and I cannot stress how important this charity is to me, and that is why I've left a percentage of my estate in a gift. I want any future blind ex-serviceman or woman to benefit from my will, and that's why I've done it. And I understand, you know, people may have families and think it's important really to look after their families in their will, and I fully understand that. I've got a family, but I've made provisions to make sure that my family are looked after in my will. But I also think it's hugely important for me to leave a gift in my will to Blind Veterans UK, and that's why I'm doing it. I've had a really good 16 year with the charity. I've took part in many adventures and activities, and I've got to meet some absolutely fantastic blind veterans and some amazing staff. The staff at the charity are second to none. That's why it's known as a world-class charity that provide world-class support and rehabilitation and training, and I'm really grateful, and my family's really grateful that Blind Veterans UK stepped in when they did. My life has turned full circle. You know, if you could imagine, you've just lost your job, you've lost your driver license, you've lost your independence. How am I going to support a young family? What's my future going to be like? But they came in at the right time, and if it hadn't been for this charity, I don't really know where I would be, and also my family. There's members in this charity that'll turn around and honestly say, hand on heart, that had it not been for this charity, they wouldn't be here now. Close friends of mine who I've known since joining the charity readily admit that if it hadn't have been for Blind Veterans UK, they wouldn't be here now. It's a life-changing, a life-affirming charity. It does wonderful work, and whatever gift that supporters are willing to leave in their will, it'll be very much valued and it'll be put to extremely good use. You know, simple things like a token watch. I've just purchased a new token watch. There's things like liquid level indicators that help blind veterans make a hot drink. There's colour detectors, so you know that when you go into your wardrobe, you pull a shirt out and you're not going to be walking around the town dressed as Krusty the Clown or something like that. There's more expensive bits of equipment like CCTVs and scanners and things like that that really make the life of a blind veteran easier. And that's, you know, we're just the same as you and I. We just want to get on with our lives. We want to provide for our family. So any bit of equipment that can help with do that, you know, is fantastic. There will be a question and answer session, as Kim said, towards the end of this presentation. But I hope I give you a flavour of what the charity is all about and how important it is for us as members for you to leave a gift in your will. So I'm hoping at the end of this presentation you'll have lots of questions, and I'm hoping that you've managed to understand my Geordie accent. So thanks everyone. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much, Colin. Thank you. Yes, as Colin said, we will be having a question and answer session later. So if you do have any questions, please do post those in the chat for us and our speakers will answer those later. So now I'd like to introduce our next speaker. So please welcome Nikki Shaw.
Hi everybody, it's an absolute pleasure to be here and a pleasure to be speaking to you today. Our supporters are the people that make our work possible, And for that, we are incredibly grateful. So thank you so much for being here and making the time to come and listen to us today. Kim asked me to say a little bit about what it is that we actually deliver within Blind Veterans UK, and particularly what we've been doing recently in order to support our blind veteran population. I could probably talk about this for days, to be honest, because not only is there an awful lot, but in terms of the context within which we are working, particularly as we emerge out of the pandemic, there's been so much, that as a charity that we have done in order to respond to those extraordinary circumstances that we found ourselves in. And I know everybody on the call today will have experienced, the impact on society, the impact on individuals, friends, neighbours, family. It's been quite incredible, and for many devastating. And as a charity, as an organisation there to support an already vulnerable beneficiary group, we worked really, really hard through the pandemic in order to change our response to make sure that blind veterans are safe and that they are well and that they are supported. And so we're very much coming out of that today. So I was just going to start by talking to you a little bit about what that means and what that's looked like for us really over the last year or so. Next slide. Thank you, Kim. We run centres of wellbeing excellence, and the photograph here is of our centre in Brighton on the left, and then there's a photograph on the right, and that shows our blind veterans, our permanent blind veterans that live at that centre in Brighton, celebrating the 75th anniversary of VE Day. And in that picture, you can see the head of care with her mask, and the blind veteran sat down having a traditional picnic, sat 2 meters apart to respect social distancing, making sure that they remember and they commemorate that VE Day. That particular event followed what was an incredibly challenging time for us within that centre. The onset of COVID had a tremendous impact upon our blind veterans members, and we effectively turned into an acute nursing facility whereby we worked exceptionally hard to prevent infection and incredibly hard in order to nurse people back to health. And there were many examples of where we did that. Like many charities and organisations, we were challenged with the lack of PPE. We were challenged around social distancing, but actually the staff did an absolutely incredible job of making sure that those members remained connected, that they were able to socialise, that they were able to partake in activities, and that they were looked after as much as possible, and maintain contact with their families, which was, a really, really sort of significant challenge. I'm so proud to say that 2 of our staff, our head of care and also the centre manager, received honours from the Queen, the last ones to receive an MBE and a British Empire Medal as a result of their services to blind veterans during that time. But across the charity, we changed our offer to ensure emergency aid and assistance. And that was everything from buying food, delivering medication, through to making sure that members were receiving the treatment and the healthcare that they received. We had many incidents whereby staff were arriving at the homes of blind veterans and finding them unwell, and actually taking action that was life-saving during that period, which was, really, really devastating and difficult for all concerned. And as we started to emerge out of the pandemic, actually supporting blind veterans to get to local vaccination centres to make sure that they were protected as much as possible, and also referring them back into our centres of excellence, of which there are 2, one in Brighton and one in Llandudno in North Wales, to make sure that those members have respite. And that was so important because we saw such a deterioration in the health of blind veterans during this period. Many malnourished, many hadn't exercised, many whose sight had deteriorated. And so wrapping a team of people, carers, nurses, activity specialists, social workers around these particular blind veterans in order to make sure that they were well supported and well looked after and had some TLC was incredibly important. We also nationally and right across the country introduced new ways of working with our blind veteran population. Next slide, thank you, Kim. So we'd spent a lot of time visiting our members in their homes, but actually due to social isolation, we couldn't do that for a period of time. And so where we identified that members were particularly isolated or they wanted to partake in activities with each other, we put training in place in order to give them equipment in order to reduce that social isolation. And actually what we saw was our IT instructors, some of whom have sight loss themselves, training blind veterans in the use of adaptive equipment and accessible equipment so that they could meet with each other and stay in touch and partake in activities. And that reduced the social isolation that many of them were experiencing so much. In every case, when we work with one of our members, we make sure that what we put in place is suitable for their specific needs. We make sure that we give them the right solutions, and I know Paul's going to go on to talk a little bit more about how we do that next, so I won't eat his sandwiches, so to speak. But I just want to say that our blind veterans were phenomenal through this time. The camaraderie, the fighting spirit and the bravery that they showed through this particular experience was absolutely incredible. And they really stepped up to trying new ways of keeping in touch with each other, just to make sure that they remained mentally and emotionally and physically well. Next slide, Kim, thank you. There's a couple of examples here where our rehabilitation staff, the visually impaired, are showing members, some of our members, how they can use particular equipment in order to be able to read or hear things being read to keep them in touch with the organisation and each other. We emerged sort of through the pandemic being a charity who was successful in delivering the first remote national rehabilitation service in the United Kingdom. And it was something that the NHS were really interested in, and that they took an evaluation in order to see how much we'd achieved to make sure that blind veterans still achieve their outcomes during a period of challenge. The fighting spirit was just incredible through that period of time. And actually what we're now doing is offering a real blended service whereby we're going out and doing this very thing that you can see in front of you, which is sitting in the homes of our members, making sure that they are supported with the things that they need in order to function in life, making sure, as Colin says, that their families are supported to assist them. But at the same time, we've maintained quite a bit of that remote support, and we're now starting to bring people together in groups who met through the pandemic, maybe via the computer, but are now meeting each other for the first time face to face, and that's been so important. We work around principles of accepting sight loss, adjusting to sight loss, and then achieving with sight loss. And that's the pathway that we work through with all blind veterans that come into the organisation. And we do that through a whole variety of ways. But the key to our success, first of all, is the family culture that exists within the organisation that Colin has alluded to. Often we hear blind veterans talk about us as their second home or as their family. because of the close-knit relationships that exist, not only between blind veterans, but also our staff, and how well we get to know each other on a very sort of personal level. And the impact that we have is very much focused on supporting people in the moment, but also into the future as well. So we don't see people on a short-term basis like lots of other services, but actually we're committed to them for life. And that is so important. Often at the time of life that some blind veterans come to us, that they're going to be with us and have that support for the rest of their days. We continue to work now very much on assisting our blind veterans with their sight loss. Some people think that, you know, when you lose your sight, that's it and that's just how it happens. But actually, for many of our blind veterans, there is a deterioration that exists. Some members might come to us with severe sight loss, but actually by the time they leave us, they might be totally blind. And so we're constantly working to make sure that they have the right aids, adaptation support, and involvement with ourselves and other services to make sure that we can support them as their conditions and circumstances change over time. And we also work with many blind veterans in relation to their physical health. Next slide, thanks, Kim. And that's important as well. So improving physical health often improves mental health. And actually, if you're physically and mentally well, then often actually dealing with the impact of sight loss can be helped. So we work hard with our members, all ages and all conditions, to make sure that we give them the opportunity to take place in activities that really help in those areas. And we certainly feel at the moment that our services are needed more than ever. Rehabilitation for many of our blind veterans is starting again, given the level of deterioration that they suffered through the pandemic, where maybe they've not got out of their home, in some cases not even got out of a chair. You know, so actually starting again with some of that rehabilitation, refamiliarising them with how to walk, how to use a cane, how to get to the shops, how to use the telephone. It all has started again. And we're very much focusing on well-being as well. Next slide, thank you, Kim. And improving social connectedness. So these photographs in front of you are members coming together that perhaps haven't seen each other for some time, or are meeting each other for the first time. And the impact of this is almost immeasurable. This, for many, may be the only outing that they have that week, the only point of contact that they might have with somebody else. And as I said, the camaraderie and being with other people experiencing the same challenges in life can be very, very comforting. And so we're very proud of the networks that we have in order to connect blind veterans to one another. Finally, we're working to plan for the future. We always need to have our eye on the future. And we're actually working hard at the moment on planning for future potential cohorts of blind veterans into the charity. And I recently spent a little bit of time at the Defence Medical Rehabilitation Centre in Loughborough, where injured personnel will come in from battlefields in order to be rehabilitated. And we're readying ourselves in the event of future cohorts of blind veterans coming into the organisation, and making sure that we've got those referral pathways and support in place if and when that happens. We're also working very hard on improving connectivity between our existing members and making sure that our avenues are fully open for all of those blind veterans out there that are still eligible to receive our support. You know, so our doors are firmly open and we're welcoming new referrals all the time. We're going to be investing more in remembrance events and military events. Next slide, please, Kim. They are so important to our members that they have the opportunity to remember. Members of all ages, all conflicts. Actually, this is so significant in terms of rehabilitation and also honouring and remembering their military connection and military colleagues as well. And beyond that, making sure that we maintain our specialist rehabilitation, that we remain market leading, life changing, you know, and absolutely on top of our game in terms of offering the best possible sight loss rehabilitation experience that we possibly can, because we have to consider our legacy as a charity. We have to consider what we're going to do to make sure that what we provide into the future is exactly going to meet the requirements of those future blind veterans. As I speak today, our youngest member is 30 years of age and our eldest member is 104 years of age. We need to make sure that we are here in 70 years' time for that 30-year-old to make sure that he has the support through life that he's going to need. And there are many more like that, you know, and that's why leaving a gift in your will absolutely ensure that into the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Nikki. It was great to hear from you. I really liked the succinct way that you said that, you know, we focus on accepting sight loss, adjusting to sight loss, and achieving with sight loss. I think that's a really lovely way of putting it, and it's so true, and it's so evident that we see that, you know, in our blind veterans and how the charity works with them. So with that, I will move on to our next speaker. Oh, sorry. So Paul Hartley, who is our rehabilitation practice development lead. So Paul, sorry, I'm just going to unmute you. Paul, if you could unmute yourself, Paul.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there we go.
Lovely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, just I wanted to add a personal thank you on my part for your time here today listening to us, and thank you really to Colin and Nikki for, I think, painting a really great picture of, in Colin's case, the why we do what we do with his personal story, and Nikki with the what. And I guess I feel my job now is to talk a little bit about the how. So could you just turn to the next slide, please, Kim? And just move on from that one as well. Thank you. Yeah, so I wanted to, I think Colin painted a really, really poignant sort of picture of his journey and what happened for him. And I think at this point it will be, I'd like you to all just to sort of think about and imagine, for any of you who aren't already living with sight loss, what it might be like to suddenly lose your sight. You know, how would you continue to work? How would you manage at home? How would you get to the shops, stay in contact with friends? How would you cope? You know, they're such difficult questions to think about and things that we don't normally want to think about, but situations sometimes come about, and as Colin said, Blind Veterans was there for him at that time of need when those questions came into his mind. Next slide, please. Right, up on the screen at the moment is and we've all heard of the WHO over the last few years. Anybody hadn't done, the World Health Organization, because of COVID. The World Health Organization have a model, which is the International Classification of Functioning. And that model really focuses on personal factors, putting the individual at the center, looking at environment, and then how people can participate and live the best version of their lives. And I think in my time at Blind Veterans, and I've been with Blind Veterans for 22 years, I see that's where I see rehabilitation sitting. You know, there's the challenge. And I think that model sits really well in what we're trying to do. Next slide, please. So I guess that comes back to the how. How do our rehabilitation services work? And I think with that in mind, it's about having a multidisciplinary approach, and therefore we have a collection of really talented practitioners all working alongside our members in order to help them find their way through their journey, like Colin, to be able to live the best version of their lives. So we have rehabilitation specialists, ROVI, and that's my background. I trained originally and came into blind veterans as a ROVI. We have occupational therapists, which, you know, you kind of lift away outside of the sight loss and look at the whole picture. They bring another perspective when working with their members. And Nikki's already mentioned our tech practitioners, those people who really helped to get our members connected during the pandemic. Incredible work that was done remotely, work that perhaps before the pandemic we didn't even think was possible. Fantastic achievements, and a really sort of solution-focused approach that we had with utilising technology really to get people connected. Really important. And that sort of leads back into one of our other specialists around well-being, and actually covers everything pretty much. And then we have our community support team that work in our community to make sure that our members are really staying connected, that we're able to identify their needs and be able to give them the best service that works and fits for them. Okay, can I have the next slide, please? Okay. Right, now, so one of the things I think is, how do we do that? So we've actually got, and Nikki touched on this a little bit, we've got a sort of blended offer. So we've got the national offer, and we've talked about, Nikki talked about our centres of wellbeing, and obviously you saw pictures of Brighton and our Llandudno centre, and we're excited to see Llandudno come on board, so Rustington to come on board soon as our new centre. And we provide a national remote service, so we can assess for people's needs, and we can have conversations about what works better for people, identifying what is the important thing in that person's life that they're really trying to achieve, and really getting granular with that. And we also have what we call our member support hub, which is a service that's provided for all our members, where they can call in, ask technical advice, ask for help with equipment, and get general advice and guidance around how they want to live their life to the best of their ability. And then we look at our local offer, where we're looking at our community teams, our CSWs, the community support workers, and we look at a much more blended approach there as well, where we're actually delivering services remotely, but also going out to visit people. And as Nikki said, we're doing much more of that now, and getting people together, and actually getting people who perhaps created friendships remotely and are now able to meet face to face, which is incredibly important. And also we're looking at how we develop our partnership working as well. So how do we work with local organisations, local service delivery, and how we actually work and contribute with the sector as a whole. So we do some work along with the sector looking at national tech strategies, closing the digital divide, all areas that we're involved with in order to be able to ensure that our members stay in control of what they want in their lives. Go to the next slide, please. And you can see here there's some examples of some of the work that we're doing with our members around technology and identifying strategies. And I think one of the things for me, as somebody who's worked with a lot of technology, is actually when we talk about closing the digital divide and ensuring that everybody comes on board, all our members come with us as we move more into a digital world, we also have to recognise that not everybody wants to grab the first smartphone out there, that some people actually might need an actual simple strategy. And it really is important in the work that we do, that we really dig in with individuals and find out what it is that they need, what they want to do, and then work and come alongside them and do that work with them so they can achieve their goals. And one of the things about sight loss is with people for life. It's something that can progress, and as Nikki said, sometimes we have people joining us with poor sight and may end their time with us with no sight at all. And that means their needs might change and their wants might change. And it's really important that we are fluid with that work and that we are able to be responsive and will continue to work alongside people to ensure that what we're offering them is exactly what they need. So, for example, I was going to give a little bit of a case story. We had one of my team, who's a tech practitioner, was given a referral. And a member said, I've seen these talking phones. This would be great. Can I have one? And that practitioner spoke over the phone and said, well, look, okay, what have you already got at the moment? And this particular individual had some useful sight and had a smartphone. And over a series of calls, they identified that there were some mainstream bits of technology that were sitting in that phone. a little bit of a magnification, and even a little bit of speech. And together over the phone, they actually worked out that the equipment that particular individual, that member had, actually would meet that person's need. And what they actually needed was a bit of time and a bit of space to work with somebody. And I think this is kind of where our USP is, our unique selling point. We saw some images of one of our members with their young daughter, and obviously Colin's told his story. And I think what holds us together is that family feeling. And actually, alongside that is the sight loss, but actually where we can see that as our strategy to be able to help people to find what it is they want. So the military side is that mesh that holds people together. And actually the work we do around resolving problems is around ensuring that people get to live the best version of their lives. I think that's actually it for me. So thanks, Kim.
Thank you so much, Paul. That was fantastic. Yeah, I think one thing that certainly strikes me about, Blind Veterans UK is the fact that we do take that, unique and adaptable approach with our veterans. We really base it on their needs. And as you've all said, needs change. We're there throughout the entire life of our veterans. And it's a case of making sure that they've got what they need at that particular time, and that might change. So yeah, that was fantastic. Thank you. So let's move on to our question and answer session. So as I mentioned earlier, if anyone does have any questions for our speakers, please do post those into the chat. I have had a few come in. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing my screen so that you can see our speakers. So the first question that we've had come in, I'd like to leave money to blind veterans, but I've got 5 grandkids, so I'm not sure if I can. So I think, Colin, if you'd be happy to answer this one.
Certainly, thanks, Kim. I'll be happy to. It's only right that you make provisions for your family. I've done that. I've wrote my will, and I've left quite a large amount of the estate to my family, but I've also made sure that I've left a percentage to the charity. So you can leave a set sum, or you can leave a percentage to the charity. Whatever you leave will make a huge impact on the lives of any future blind ex-servicemen or servicewomen. But you're right, it is a difficult decision. Do I support the family or do I support the charity? But you can actually do both. £7, for instance, would buy someone a liquid level indicator, which would make them independent when they're making a hot drink. £40 would buy them a token watch. And if you give or you left a larger sum or a larger percentage in your will, that could provide some more expensive equipment for these future members. So yes, look after your family, but also perhaps think about leaving a gift for the charity.
Thank you, Colin. Yeah, I think that's definitely answered that question. Hopefully, that's helpful. So looking at our second question, if I leave a legacy, what will my money be spent on? Nikki, if you're happy to answer this one.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Kim. Yeah, I mean, this is a really important question because you absolutely want to make sure that your money goes to the very heart of what the organisation is about, and that, of course, is to our blind veterans. So just in terms of statistics, 86p of every pound is spent on our charitable purposes. So 86p goes towards the provision of delivery to blind veterans, and then beyond that, 14p is spent on raising the next pound. So in comparison to other charities, if you were to benchmark that, that's good. That is actually very good. And I went through this just to share with you. I went through this sort of thought process today because I'm sat at home at the moment in my office, and my colleague who is a director is sat at home in her office, And I thought, you know, in coming onto this call, do I take my background off because I'm sat at home? But then I thought, actually, it's important because we don't have huge offices, you know, that where we work out of. Actually, we work really efficiently, and part of that efficient working and me being at home is because it's absolutely right that the money goes to the people that we're delivering on, you know, and not really high infrastructure costs. So yeah, we can absolutely provide some reassurance in that respect.
Thank you, Nikki. Okay, we've just had a question come in from Elizabeth. What do you do if you've already made your will and would need to add this in? Would there be a cost involved in doing this? I'll answer this one if that's okay with the team. So it's very easy to update or amend your will. We actually work with two external will providers that we can refer you to do this for free. So I will provide a little bit more information on this in a moment. But the short answer is that it's very important, but it's also very easy to update your will. And you know, we do work with two. There are lots of services available, but we work with two in particular, and I can provide you with further information on how to do that. And blind veterans will cover the cost at a special discounted rate. Another question that we've had come in, is rehabilitation successful for everyone? So Paul, if you could answer this one, please.
Very happy to. I'm going to say categorically yes, because when we talk about rehabilitation, the way we work is to consider each individual at the absolute centre of any problem that is brought forward for rehabilitation. So when we get the mix right, the first thing we need to do as practitioners is really spend some time with that particular individual and finding out what the problem is. And that problem might only be 5% of the whole issue. The next 95% is actually finding a solution. And what we do is with when I talked about the multidisciplinary teams that we have, is that we then explore different pathways. And as long as we keep that individual at the centre of everything we do, and we really very much train our teams to work in a person-centred and solution-focused way, we stay with that pathway and walk alongside our members, the outcome is always going to be a success. And if we find a challenge, if we get to an end of a process and we haven't quite got the outcome that particular member wants, then our job is to go back with them again, ask more questions, put them closer at the centre, and work with them continually until we've resolved that issue. But again, you know, we've been talking about how we actually serve our members lifelong, and so that journey can change. So while one process might be successful, it may lead on to another one and another rehabilitation intervention. But yes, 100%, it works.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul. That's great to hear. Another question that we've had come in, there are lots of charities doing great work, and I'd love to help everyone, as indeed we all would, but I can't. Why should I give my support to Blind Veterans UK? I think, Colin, if you're happy to answer this one, please.
Certainly, Kim. Be happy to. There are some fantastic charities out there that do amazing work, and it can be a bit of a dilemma. But nobody supports blind veterans or veterans the way that we do. The reason why you're probably on this call, because this charity actually resonates with you. Nobody, like I say, supports blind veterans like we do. They're with us for the rest of their lives. We make a commitment when they first join this charity that we'll support them for the rest of their lives. And not only them, we can support the family after the member has passed on. So that's the commitment that we made. It's a long-term commitment, and one that we always strive to fulfill. So yes, it is a dilemma, but we do some amazing work, and we really value your support.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Colin. We've just had a lovely comment come in from Richard Taylor, which I'd just like to read to our speakers. So my local blind veterans has been an immense help to us since I was registered blind last year. Helping out blind veterans is a no-brainer. We make a donation every Christmas. Thank you so much, Richard, and to your family. That's really lovely to hear, really very much appreciated, because it is only with support like yours that we can help our veterans. So you know, enormous thanks from all of the team here. Do we have any more questions before we move on? I can see that Jenny Fuller is typing. What I'll do is I'll move on to our final slide, and then we'll just come back to that before we close off. So with that in mind, I will just share my screen once again. All this technology. Here we go. So Richard Taylor's just sent in another question. Thanks, Richard. How do we access IT trainers? So Paul, is this one that you're able to help with, please?
Yes, so just put myself on mute and then I have to take myself off again. But if we go back to the model that we have here with our members, I talked about the community teams. So if one of our members is struggling with an IT need, they would put a referral into one of our triage teams, and these teams look at all the different aspects to a particular need, and then will identify a member of the technology team who will then reach out directly to the support worker and the member, and then work together to create a program that will enable that particular individual to meet their needs. So again, it's really tailored to our members, and we make sure that the pathway to get that help is as simple and straightforward as possible. So yeah, so it's a contact with that member's support worker in the community, a referral into our national IT team, and then from there, one of our IT practitioners will contact that member directly. Hope that answers it.
Thank you, Paul. Jenny's, I'll just read out Jenny's comment. So it's not a question, but Jenny's just said, I'm a beneficiary of Blind Veterans UK. I've been so well supported by the charity. I could not ask for more. Knowing there is someone there to help has been invaluable. The contributions from supporters over the years and the new ones too help to support those who at some point in their lives served to protect you and the country and now need help as a result of sight loss. Thank you so much, Jenny. That's really, really lovely to hear. So glad to hear that you've been well supported by the charity, and I couldn't agree more in thanking all of those that have supported the charity to allow that to happen. So Elizabeth has added another question. Do you rely on individuals like us for your main funding, or do you have some large donors or anything like lottery funding? I will answer this, and Wendy Bell, who's also a member of the Gifts and Wills team, do feel free to contribute as well. So Blind Veterans UK relies on donations, mostly from individuals. So 5 in 10 of our veterans are supported as a result of Gifts and Wills. That's our biggest source of income. We do rely on donations from our individual supporters, so lots of people that give us regular donations, and you know, people that play our lottery and our raffle. As a charity, we receive very little government funding. We are predominantly supported through individuals. So we are enormously grateful for that support that we do receive, and of course, Gifts and Wills are our biggest source of income, so we're enormously grateful for those. So another question that's just come in from Jenny, how are salaries paid? So I don't know, Wendy, if you want to step in here. So I mean, as first thing to say is that, as Nikki said earlier, we do have a very low cost of our infrastructure as a charity. So 86 pence is spent on our charitable purposes. So 86 pence in every pound is spent on our veterans, and only 14 pence is spent on raising the next pound. That includes all of the infrastructure that goes behind all of our fundraising activities to make sure that we have the funds in place for the future. So as a charity, we are very good at making sure that our costs are low and that, you know, we prioritise spending our funds on our veterans, who really are the heart of everything that we do. So I hope that answers your question, Jenny.
Yeah, I can chip in a little bit, but as Nikki said, yes, so 86 pence out of every pound goes directly to the charity. We, of course, we do have salaried staff. We also have a brilliant team of volunteers that do so much for the charity, but it's important that we have good people working for the charity, because that in return gives us a much better return on your investment, in effect. So by having, you know, brilliant people working for us, we are able to make the most. And as Nikki said, if you benchmark that against other charities, I think you'll find that, you know, the salaries are fair, but actually we are returning that investment very well and investing that money back. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy. Definitely important to mention our amazing volunteers, because they do so much for the charity. Brilliant. I think that's all of the questions that we've had come in. So what I will do now, and hopefully this will also provide a bit of information for Elizabeth following Elizabeth's question, is I just want to talk a little bit about our free will services. So at Blind Veterans UK, we know how important it is to have an up-to-date will. So we do offer free will services for all of our blind veterans, our staff, and also supporters like you. So we work with two services. The first is the National Free Wills Network. So this is a service that offers a face-to-face meeting with a solicitor in your local area. The other service that's available is Bequeathed, which is an online service. So you'd have the ability to write your will entirely online, and it would then be checked by the Bequeathed legal team. We've had excellent feedback from both of these services. In fact, one of our blind veterans, Simon, who you can see pictured here, used the National Free Wills Network, and he himself said the process was painless. The solicitor talked him through everything and he felt at ease. So one thing that it is important to note is that if you do use these services, there's absolutely no obligation to leave a gift in your will to Blind Veterans UK. But as you've heard today, they are so important to our charity. They do help support our veterans, and they're our biggest source of income. So, you know, we would be enormously grateful if you would consider leaving a gift after making provisions for your friends and family, as Colin said. So please do, you know, consider us. If you'd like to find out more about these services, please do contact us. You can contact myself or my colleague Amara on giftsandwills@blindveterans.org.uk, or you can call us on 0207 616 7923. We'd be very happy to speak to you directly, or we can also post or email you a copy of our Gifts and Wills brochure with more information. So I very much hope that you found this event interesting, and that we've answered all of your questions today. If you do have any further questions, do please get in touch with us on the details on the screen, and we'll be very happy to get in touch with you. Thank you so much, and thank you also to all of our speakers, and thank you all of our attendees for your time. Take care and have a lovely rest of the day.